and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40 platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. You can join the community at WB40.com. Today in the confessional, I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to be speaking to this extraordinary woman. Her name is Jules, and Jules has worn many hats, but one thing is for certain: she is resilient, she is a survivor, and she's quite an extraordinary human being. Jules is an award-winning author, she is an award-winning bodybuilder, and she's also a keynote speaker. She has survived childhood abuse, is recovering from being an alcoholic. She is an extraordinary human who has written the most brilliant book. The book is called The Making of a Woman. I know you will not want to miss this at all. Jules is very open about sexuality, about empowering women who are 40 and beyond, and I think she is absolutely fantastic. Please welcome to the confessional, Jules. Hello, Jules, and welcome to the confessional. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I am so good. I'm really, really excited. Here in Australia, we're actually recording this on International Women's Day. So how lucky am I to be speaking to a kick-ass woman like your good self today?
Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you to be amongst the women. I mean, that's the amazing part. I'm like amongst the amazing women in the world.
Yeah,
we've got stories.
You are doing incredible things. So first of all, thank you for your time, because I know it's probably late there, is it?
In the
US?
It's 5 o'clock. It's only 5 p.m.
Yeah, it's not too bad then. Oh, it's 10 a.m. here, so it's great.
Okay.
First of all, congratulations on your amazing book, which is called The Making of a Woman.
Yeah.
I would love to know, before we talk about this incredible book, please tell us all about your amazing background.
I can give a snapshot, right? Because it's almost like two different phases. There was like phase one and then phase two. So phase one was, the growing up in the Midwest. We had very limited resources. My mom left my father. It was terrible. We moved into, a bigger family. I got lost. There was abuse. There was incest. And then I really got lost when I went out into the world with, I would say, childlike behaviors. That was my skill set, is what I learned when I was maybe 12. And I dropped out of school in 9th grade. And that was then pretty much when adulthood started for me. So if you can think of people who are like 14 years old, 14-year-old girls, like, wow, it makes me realize like what a big deal that was at that age to do that. And so, I pretty much catapulted into this adult life with a lot of trauma, a lot of rage. I was very angry, but I had this determination of survival. And alcohol became this amazing Band-Aid to keep all that icky crap down so I could stay on course, right? Like, I don't have time for a meltdown. I don't have time to cry. And I don't have time for therapy. Like, I've got shit to do. So, drinking was definitely my solution. And then, of course, filled in with some drugs here, some boys here, some women here. It was just sprinkled, And so for 19 years, I was on that path. And I hit bottom probably about 3 times. And there was something in me that just would not let me. I mean, maybe it was my ego. But man, she was not going to allow me to settle for anything. And so we would pack up my bags. And when I say bags, I mean black garbage bags. We would pack my stuff up. I had my cats in a kennel and a Coach purse over one arm. And girl, I was determined. I'm out of here. Where are you going? I have no clue, but I'm out of here. And so that journey went on until I hit 35 years old. Is when I got sober.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that is really where everything just, we hear about the reset button. Now, the thing is that my life before and even at this time it was just me. I was the only one. I mean, nobody stood up for me when I was growing up. Nobody protected me. So I was really used to protecting myself. And so, isolation was normal. And in fact, it was actually preferred because there's no harm. There's no threat. And so then it was like this pause moment of like, wow. And it wasn't even me. It wasn't even me having the brilliant idea like, wow, my life's out of control. It wasn't at all. I was such a warrior, such a like, we are going to do this, that it was a light conversation I had. And I just nonchalantly said, I just wish I didn't drink so much. And the two people in the front of that car, their little ears went up like antennas, is what I kind of joke. And it was like 30 minutes from that moment, I was sitting in that cold metal chair in the rooms of recovery. And my whole world like just froze. It just stopped. The chaos stopped. Everything stopped. And it got real quiet.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Firstly, I really want to say this, that I am in awe of your bravery and your courage to tell this story, because as a child who, went through sexual abuse myself, I feel like for some survivors, we have an innate survival instinct, but for others, they are not so lucky. But in you telling this story, there'll be so many listeners hearing your story thinking, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Who are still battling those demons and trying to figure their way through life, regardless of their age. So I thank you for your courage to tell your story so openly and so honestly. I feel for that little girl in you,
Yes.
I just do.
And that's who I wrote this for, was for the girl in the back of the room. I've been in those shoes. You've been in those shoes. Like, I have chills going up my legs as we talk about this. It's like, that is the person I wrote this book for. Because when I sat down and tried to think of like, oh my God, the masses, I lost it. My purpose was lost, and it was disguised, and it was total ego. But when I shifted it right back down to that little girl, or that little person in the back of the room, man, I could write and write and write. And because that's what this is, right? We speak from the language of the heart. Everybody's story is a little different, but we all know what isolation feels like, and pain and shame and secrecy. We all get those words. And that's what I led with. I led with that sort of language. And I'm grateful, because of my time in recovery, I've been able to share this, different parts of my story. So then when it came to this, final, the final finale is like, it was something I was so grateful to be able to do at this level, because there are unnecessarily, there's so many people still stuck in that.
Wow. I know you're really trying to condense this story down, but I'm thinking that incredible image of you packing up your stuff into black garbage bags and just moving on is so, it's so evocative, because I can see it, I can feel what you went through. Man. Okay. So this big turning point happens at 35, where you decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to drink anymore. So how did you go in that process to sobriety?
I didn't even know that alcohol was my problem, because remember, anytime things became a problem, I would drink and then the problem would go away. So I didn't even realize that that was part of the problem. So that also shows me like how like delusional I was, because I couldn't even see that within myself. But I think as warriors, we are not trained to look inward. We are trained to look outward and always be navigating, right? And so So when I did get into the rooms of recovery, all of that was still there. All of that. In fact, all we did is we took the alcohol and we put it off to the side and we're like, now we're going to try to do this without. Now, can you imagine what I looked like for that first year and a half? I was a hot mess. I was livid. I was raging. I was intolerant. I was in so much pain, right? And as we know, this stuff comes out sideways. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to talk. I mean, everything. It was. I joke like it was. I was dropped on planet sober. Like as an alien, I have no idea. Like, what are the rules? Do I speak now? Do I not speak now? And then of course we have all the dogma of like, well, a woman's supposed to be. And I was like, that doesn't seem right to me. And so it was this huge learning curve. And I think I didn't even realize what trajectory I was on, because the moment that I would look at, it just felt safe, right? And it was the women, girl, it was the women. When I would go into those rooms, they'd give me this hug and they're like, Jules, it is so good to see you. Those words, I had not heard anything like that well back into my childhood. I mean, since. I mean, there was just, so even just the micro little dose of a little bit of affection, or even existing, realizing that I exist, it just permeated. So that was the momentum. That's what the momentum that kept me going. And so then little by little, piece by piece. But I think because the bottom was so low that anything that good that happened was just like, oh my God, I'm not going anywhere. Call me what you want. I'm going to stay right here and I'm just going to keep moving forward because like it's working. And I didn't even care if you called me alcoholic. I didn't care. It was like such an amazing, it's like I finally landed and I was like, I don't care. Call me whatever. I'll do exactly as you say. Let's just keep moving forward like we are. Man.
Wow.
Wow,
that's powerful. It's so powerful. But you touched on something there which is so important, right, to all of us as human beings, is that moment where somebody sees you, hears you, understands you and accepts you with all of your warts, right?
Right.
Warts and all, right?
Totally.
That's a powerful, powerful moment. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So amazing things start to happen for you, obviously, you know, once you're sober. And part of that journey, I imagine, was dealing with that rage, that anger, and understanding where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, some people believe, you know, that you're born with the disease. Some people believe you acquired the disease. And some people believe that the trauma is really what causes the drinking. So for whatever the reason it is, I was grateful to get to the point where treating that, whatever it is, right, allowed me to, first off, it allowed me to believe in people. Like I'm in a room full of people that I really don't like. I don't look like, I don't want their lives, but they hold space for me. They stayed with me in that meeting for an hour. I mean, there were times I was, banging my hands on the table. Other times I'm blowing bubbles out my nose and sobbing like a child. It was like, and we say, we love you until you can love yourself. And it was the first time that I saw first time I saw a man cry was there. Was in the rooms of recovery. It was the first time I've ever seen a man cry. So it was just this whole like, oh my God, I knew there was something like this out here. And so, and I stuck with it. I mean, I've lived overseas and I've met people in different languages, and because no matter where I go, I have this group of like-minded people, and they always know exactly what I'm thinking or what I'm talking about, or there is nothing crazy anymore.
That's so great. And so, and I'm not sure, I've not had to go through that journey, but it's a lifelong journey, right?
It is, but it's almost like you're going through college. So it's the feeling of like, okay, I'm a freshman and I don't know anything. and I'm inferior. These people know so much more than me. And then you get to sophomore and you're like, well, maybe I have a little ground in here. Like, I kind of know what I'm going to do here. And they give you the key to the room. And so you move up. And then what happens is when you get to that senior level and all of those times that you've sat and you've listened to other people, like they've listened to you, then you are given the gift of helping that new person coming in the door. And that is really where you see the spiritual awakening, I think, take place, because here you are sitting almost like in a surreal position, and you're listening to this person tell you pretty much your story, and you're like, girl, I've got all the answers. I can help you find your answers. Like, and the thing is, it's like no dictatorship. Like, I can't tell you what to do, but I certainly can ask the questions so you can find your answers of what to do. I mean, who teaches us this stuff? So it's a miraculous lifetime, journey, but it's, and you just get stronger and stronger. And I think it's that spiritual connection that gets stronger and stronger. And the more I clear my mess out of the way, the more authentic I get to become, right? Like, this girl wears no more masks. Wow. So it is a journey. It does have its ups and downs, but it's never hitting the bottom like I used to. I may stumble, but
so
man,
amazing.
I'm not hanging out getting real estate down there anymore.
That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So this phase 2 of your life happens, really, because it must have been like, I guess in my head, I'm seeing like a butterfly, you come out of the cocoon and suddenly you're like, whoa, hang on.
Exactly. And you can soar, you can fly.
Right.
And the whole world is yours, and it's open, and it looks completely different. It's very exciting, actually. But the cool thing is now as I move through the journey, right? I'm still the same person. I still have triggers. I'm there, there's some pieces that I've been fortunate enough to really work through and give back to people that gave me things that weren't mine, like their belief systems and their judgments. You read the first page of the book and it starts off with a list of things that people used to call me. And that became my truth. So the power of the word is very, very important to me. And it resonates because you can either lift somebody up or you can put them down with one word. Like, choose it wisely. So what I've done is I keep within this circle of people, I keep like, and it's all about getting vulnerable. Girl, it's one thing to tell you what I've done like 3 years ago, but to tell you what I did last night, okay, that's a whole different type of vulnerability. But what it allows is, it's almost like we hear about the law of attraction. And what happens is, like, I put that little baby step out there and I'm like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. But then one more person comes up and this person comes up and this person comes up. And then it's like, oh my gosh. And so I'm now attracting people who are also capable of being that raw, being that vulnerable. So now you're no longer uncomfortable with it because everybody's doing it. But man, those first couple steps, they're wicked. But now I have, and like the openness to just even being a woman. I'm 50 years old. I fulfill none of the stigmas that I'm supposed to as a 50-year-old woman. Right. I recently had somebody make a comment on my TikTok saying, a woman like you at your age, you should cover up, be respectful. And I was like, your kind is dying for a reason. Like, we are evolving, and I'm so grateful. Like, I get to be out. I get to just be. And sometimes I get the looks, and a lot of times I get the looks because people can't fathom what authenticity really is. And it's not.
And so you realize that is their issue, right? Like, I think when you get to a point where you like yourself where you learn to love yourself. And I
Yeah,
know people think sometimes it's a bit woo-woo, but the reality is when that starts to happen is that we start to understand that those negative comments are more about the other person than they really are about us. It's about their uncomfortability with themselves. And when we stand in our own truth and our own power and we're strong, it actually makes them uncomfortable because what they see reflected back is that they're still striving for that. They're not there yet.
Yes.
And so I understand that too, because obviously I get a lot of flack for a lot of things. One, of course, is my fierce feminism and and my stance against ageism. And so I love that you said that. Like at 50, you are sensational. You wear so many hats. You've done so many great things, right?
Yes.
Right, you do. So I think,
Yeah.
think about that. I mean, you're an author, you are a writer, you are a speaker, you are a bodybuilder, you are you won awards for this incredible book that is going to help other people. So let's talk about the bodybuilding because I love this. How did this come about?
Oh, you're just gonna laugh. So age 40, I was the average looking skinny 40-year-old. I think they call it skinny fat, right? So I'm 120 pounds. I have jet black hair and I'm 5'7". So I'm just this like itty bitty. But in the back of my head, I have this ideology that my thighs are big. And so I have a very, very bad relationship with my body. Now, I live in Dallas, Texas. And if you can imagine, summers here are like the desert. It's hot here. And even in the hottest days of Texas, I still felt the need to wear Spanx underneath blue jeans. That's how mortified, how disgusted I was by the way my thighs looked. Now, keep in mind, my mom taught me that behavior. It was just handed down, right? And I remember as a little girl standing in pre-puberty in the mirror as we are all day long. And I remember just being so full of anger and just digging my fingernails into my thighs and drawing blood. I think I was like 10, 11 years old. So this was something I'd always struggled with. And so at age 40, and I'm 5 years sober. I mean, I'm moving mountains. Source and I are like, we are neck and neck. Things are happening. And I thought, I want to get the cellulite off my thighs. And so I, do my research, like who really has the cellulite off their thighs? I don't want to look at a magazine cover and I don't want to look at the lipo girls. I want to know who did it, because I don't have money for all that stuff. So how do you really do it? And so I went to a bodybuilder because, those girls don't have just a sliver of anything like that on their legs. And I was like, I want what you have. Teach me how to do this. And so this whole thing was simply the seed way back when, 10 years ago, when I stood there like green in the face in the posing room going, I want to get the cellulite off my thighs. And so I did, I have. But again, it's that process, right? It's part of that journey. You get the days where you're like, what the hell am I doing? I'm an idiot. Why am I in here? I'm like a pencil. And then you get the other days where you're like, I just moved 300 pounds of my legs, right? So you have this, and it's like this internal building system. And this is also where I let a lot of my rage go. Because let's face it, therapy can only take me so far. And because, it's energy, it's in my muscles. So for me, it was for me to move that weight with that much fierce, I alleviated a lot of the trauma that I kept within my body. So I kept going. This felt amazing. My arms are starting to take change. And, people are making comment. My friends are like, oh my God, you got to take me to the gym. I'm thinking, I better go get certified. I need to know what I'm doing. It's just this, it was just this process. And then somebody said, hey, are you going to compete? And I was like, I don't think that's on the menu. That's not what I'm doing. And so then I thought, well, maybe I should consider this. And oddly enough, the lady who helped me through that first phase was also the woman who deflated my hope by saying, Jules, not everybody's made for stage. And it crushed me. It crushed me. It crushed our relationship. I had just put so much into her, into my goals. And so then we broke apart. Fast forward, we get to the year before last, and I did a show, and I did all right. I took third, and one of the coaches had said, there's one more show left this year. Let's put her in this show, but put her in this division. And girl, I knocked it out of the park. I took a first, a second, and a third, and I qualified for nationals. I'm coming out with all these.
Woo! Congratulations. I bloody love that. I love it so much because, and especially this is a thing, right? This is why I'm so passionate about this stuff, is how many extraordinary women over the age of 40, women hitting 50, women 60, doing extraordinary things, and beyond 60, by the way. I've met some incredible women in their 70s who are awesome, who are defying those societal norms, those societal messages that we keep getting, that by the time we're a certain age, we should be behaving this way, or we should stay in our own lane, Jules, right? I love that you are in your own lane, girl. This is my lane. Right? This is your lane. And
you should probably get out of my lane, because I'm... in all honesty, right? Like, we are all human, and I want nothing more than love and light. Like, there's enough trauma in the world. And so when I have comments like this or all of that, right? All I can think about is the journey that I've been on up to this point. Now, if you would have come to me when I was, say, 23 years old and said, Jules, you have an alcohol problem and your life is out of control, I would have flipped you the finger and told, get out of my lane. I would have not had ears for that. And so that same compassion has to be given to other people who just don't have ears for it. I have to believe that women who make the comments of how I'm supposed to look were completely beaten down in their generation. And they would have lost family if they wouldn't have gone out and got married and never leave the house without makeup and, the little white driving gloves. I mean, I get it. I've been in that prison myself. So all I can do, because it's very easy to get defensive, it totally is. But if I can stay in my lane and really own it, and it doesn't mean I need to be really overwhelming. All I have to do is be an example. And a smile. Oh my God, I told you, hugs kept me coming back to get sober. I mean, a smile. And it's like, you know what, baby? I'm going to love you exactly where you're at. It's going to be from afar. I will love you from afar. But yeah, it's like, I just, you do you. Totally. And then
I love
stay out of my lane.
Okay. Right. And so congratulations, because you've now walked away with armfuls of trophies, as you should. Well done, you.
Yes.
And isn't the power of belief an amazing thing? Because you could have taken a step back when that person said, maybe it's not for you. Mm-hmm. But what you did do is look within and think, but what if I can? What if it is for me? What if I can do it? Right?
Yes. And I think also, who has the right to take that away from me? Do you know what I mean? We are all born into this world. We pretty much all look the same. We all have muscles. Why would I not be able to? And I think too, that drive that I've had all along, it has never left me. And so that drive to keep moving forward is I have purpose. I know I do. And we do now. We made it. We made it. We made it. So now I have this purpose of being helping those other women, come on, baby, take the baby step, come across the bridge. I'm right here. I got you. Right. That's what I get to do. Just I referenced, being a senior, it's now that's what I get to do. And be there for when women tell other women, you're not good enough for that. I'm going to be the one to be she just doesn't know better. Right. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's it. And I do believe that as well. And that's why empathy and compassion is so important, right?
Oh, it's so hard to obtain sometimes.
Oh, because women are beaten down every woman, really, when we think about it in the way that society treats women and has always treated women. We've come a long way, but we've got so much further to go. Yeah. That I get that for some women it is more difficult than others to, as I said, own their stuff, stand in their own power, all of the stuff. And, you know, even women who appear to have it all together, and I get this a lot where people go, oh, yeah, but you got all your shit together, so you're fine. You know, we have days where it's bloody hard. It's really hard. I look in the mirror and go, wait, where did those wrinkles come from? Or, you know, like...
I blow bubbles.
Right? Because it's real, right? Yeah. I have grey hair. I've got, you know, I'm going through menopause. I get it. I know, right?
I always say, if you look good doing it, you're not doing it right. Like, don't come in here with a little teardrop, ... It's like, oh no, you're not there yet. There's more to come.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So let's talk about this extraordinary book and the journey. Because to write a book is massive. Something that's on my to-do list, and I have started my book. I've never finished it, but it'll happen. But I have so many friends who are authors and writers, and I know that this is a huge and difficult journey. It takes a lot of internal strength, courage, but a lot of time and vulnerability to put yourself on the pages of a book. So how long did the book take to write?
6 months.
Wow. Yeah.
That's it.
Wow.
Now, a little background, though. Remember, I told you in these, 14, 15 years of sobriety, I have been able to tell those vulnerable things behind a podium in front of my recovery family. Right. So I've had this practice. And as you know, you tell women your story, a normal person in this story, they're like, oh, my God, like, you got to write a book. I mean, so it's like the seed has been planted all along. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was like, I can't remember everything. I had so many blackouts. My timeline, I had to go back to my taxes and see where I lived to be able to figure out who I was with. I mean, so it was like kind of like amnesia almost. And so once it, and I believe I have this amazing connection with the source, right? And source is my little person or my person that's inside me and I can talk to whenever. Just like we're talking right now. There's no holier than thou and la, la, la. I drop the F-bomb. I scream. I cry. I'm just human, right? But what it was is that anytime, Source is talking to me all the time, guiding me, like I'll get a great reference on Amazon about a book that I should read. I pick it up and I'm just like, holy crap, this is exactly what I needed to hear, right? And so that also works with the people who come into my life. So, and especially around this time, I would ask people as I'm looking for guidance, like, who is it that you know that I should know? And they would be like, my friend wrote a book and he's in Chicago. And this lady wrote a book and she's over in Florida. I'm going to introduce you. So the introduction. So this whole web took place of talking to complete strangers, telling them my dreams of what I want to do. And then what happened is Marlena and I crossed paths. And Marlena is a woman just like us with a beautiful story of survival. And so when I shared my story with her, she in this parts where I could not say the appropriate words, she, just authentically would bring in her, her artistic side. And then the words would just flow out. Right. And I was like, yeah, that's what I mean. So between the two of us, this ebb and flow, we started from the very beginning. And there were times midway through that I had to pull out the pictures, and like kind of shuffle things around. That's a lot of memories were shuffling around. I had to get on Facebook and look at, timelines, la, 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 la. I haven't seen some of those abusers as an adult. So there was some learning there. It was up and down, but I think because I had already invested in the healing process, I knew what to expect afterwards. Like, I am going to have an emotional hangover. And better yet, I'm going to tell you, my best friend, I'm going to be a mess probably for the next 3 days. So I need you to check on me. Right. So it's like, that's all. The only difference between me and that new person is that I just have a couple more experiences. So this whole thing comes in. Marlene and I are just like making music. Right. And this book comes out. But before we get to the very end of the book, I was like, so is this the part, because you always have to be mindful of what you share because these people still live, right? So I'm like, but there was a time where I was a professional dom.
Yes.
And my client became my angel. And I say that because the dynamic between us had nothing to do with the dynamic that I had ever experienced. And he was a closeted transgender, very late in age, but desperately wanted to share the secret. He shared it with me, and then we went on a journey of exploration for him. And so we would go to, workshops and conferences, and he would say, I'm getting so much more out of this than you are. But so I had to am I going to tell that part? Because of course society's going to be like, oh girl, you were just a well-kept woman. No, no, that's not it. So again, it's always redefining. But to know in my heart of hearts that I connected with somebody at that level, there is nothing in the world, no such vulnerability. And then to hold space for somebody who the world sees as different or as a freak or as whatever they, a risk, whatever they call it, it's an amazing gift to be able to give. And so when we got to that part, Marlene is like, hold up, what? So in other words, you were a dominatrix? I was like, it's not necessarily dominatrix. So there's a little bit of explanation in there, but I go in and I talk about the sexual liberation that takes place, the sexual healing that took place because of that. And so then, we move forward. And then I had that conversation with God. I was like, I know you know me better than anybody. I said, but I would really love to have somebody I could fall head over heels in love with. And it was 2 weeks later that I started talking with my now 8 years husband. And he was amazing. He is so patient. And he's provided this space for me to be messy, to work through fears. Abandonment was huge in my story. He would leave Post-it notes. Baby, he left Post-it notes. I'd die if I told him I was telling you this. And it would say every morning, he would look at me and goes, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. He's like, baby, I'm going to outplay that tape that's in the back of your head that tells you that every morning. So every morning for 2 weeks, and I'd find Post-it notes in my bag and in the refrigerator, and you're mine, and I'm not going anywhere, baby. And so it was amazing to see the amount of effort it takes to remove some trauma. But,
absolutely. Well, I mean, he sounds like the most beautiful human, but also, he came into your life, and I know that you're going to know this when I say it, but he came into your life because you now know, probably because you by then figured out you deserved it. Even though no doubt there were doubts in the back of your mind, people come to us for a reason at exactly the right time.
I do. The word deserve is still very hard for me, but when I think about it in a source sense, and especially telling my story over and going back into that little girl's shoes, she needed a protector. She needed somebody who was going to love her and never leave her. So when I take that and I think to myself, that little girl now as an adult, she needs that. She needs somebody who's going to love her and always admire her and never leave her.
And she's worthy. She's worthy of that.
Yeah. And some of those things, they don't come easy. Like self-love, worth. People be like, okay, so how did you find self-love? It's like, baby, I don't even know if I found it yet. Let's be honest. I don't know.
We're a work in progress, right?
I've been doing this for a few years. It's like, I don't think I'm there yet. It's a process. And there are days where I'm just like, I forget that first off, I'm in good hands. Spiritually and physically, right? I got a great group of people. And now I have people around the world. But, I think it's real easy sometimes when you fall into a little pit, it gets dark quick and you just forget about all the things. So for me, journaling is a very strong tool because the thoughts in my head, they lie to me. and they don't always tell me the full truth. So every morning when I wake up, I grab that book and I write down anything that I remember from the day before, anything that's still eating my lunch, anything that's resonating with me. And I can write any and everything in that book. I do some meditation to reset, put some good thoughts in there, and then I get out of bed. You know, I call that easing into my day opposed to plunging into my day.
I love that. And that's really about being gentle with yourself as well, right? Journaling for me has always been a thing. You know, I could write, you know, as soon as I knew how to write, writing became my thing. But it was a saving grace for me, really, when I think about it, you know, and I didn't even know as a little girl that that's what it was doing. But to be able to write down my thoughts, to be able to share with this little journal all these things that were happening in my life and to me and how I felt. Some of it I didn't really understand, but it's that process of getting it out, of sharing it with the universe, if you like, of putting it into a book, of you know, putting it into a little safe space, the pages of a little journal or whatever, because you can't tell the people in the external world what is going on, or because you can't even figure it out yourself.
Exactly.
What does this mean? How do I feel? All of the things, right? And as we get older, we can kind of get more of a grasp. But still, to this day, I think journaling is such a powerful thing, and I always say that to people. So the book takes 6 months. I want to know how you felt when this gets released into the wild. So she's out there in the real world, this beautiful book. How did it feel?
She is an entity of her own. I do have to declare that, because I actually had a journal on what, or Betty, I was supposed to meditate on what does she need to tell? What story does she need to tell? And so the cover of the book, I mean, all of that is exactly that was in meditation. Like all of it. And in the parts that we even added to the, you know, to the flaps, we're like, oh, I don't think we should lead with that. Yes. I mean, I've actually even thought about going back and doing a clean copy.
Right.
And then I thought to myself, no, because that's making me small. Right. So I'm even learning at this stage. But actually what happened is, you know, you got all of these amazing people saying, oh my God, girl, this book. And then they're like, oh, it's going to be the next movie. And you're like, yes, it's going to be a movie. And you just get super excited because you're getting this great feedback. Right. And then I come back down and I remember, why did you write the book? And one of my friends actually brought it to me one time when I was shuffling with the idea of actually making a clean copy. He says, you know, Jules, maybe writing the book was for you, not anybody else. So now I'm seeing it on this multi-level existence, right? And then I also hear that maybe in 10 years, somebody will pick this book up. Maybe in, 10 years, a woman will pick up this book who's making the decision if she should stay or go. So it's like, I'm pretty much I'm immortal. This will forever live. So there's like, oh my God, it gives you such purpose. And we started off with some heavy like publicity, and we did like just galore. And so we kind of came in hard, and now it's like I just came down to now it's me. Now it's me. And so now it's like, it's between it, we're this breathing organism, and source is guiding. And it's beautiful. It's perfect. I have women who have titles behind their name that used to intimidate the crap out of me. They call and they write emails asking if we can have a phone call. Do you know how amazing that is? And to see the pain in somebody that I used to think had it all together. Right. Letters after somebody's name used to intimidate the crap out of me.
And then you realize that people are people, that we are all human beings, right? And look, that's not to say I get to speak to so many beautiful women, some of whom, believe me, I have to really struggle not to fangirl, because I'm just so in awe of them. But then when you get talking to anybody, when you see their face and their story and their truth is coming out, you realize, you forget, because they're just a human being having a conversation with you, right?
Totally. Totally. And I love that. I love when we get to that part.
Me too.
That's the best.
So I'm looking over here because I'm just like, there's so many things about you and I just want to get this right. But you have won awards for this book. So you're now an award-winning author.
Yes. Yes, she won 2 awards already.
Right. So 2 awards. And I referred to your book as female because I also refer to this podcast as a she and my platform WB40 as a she because I feel like it's a living, breathing entity.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So you have won awards though in the LGBTQ plus arena for this book. That must be extraordinary as well.
My first girlfriend that I came out with, she transitioned 6 months into our relationship.
Wow.
It was so overwhelming. So overwhelming. And also during this time, I started to, and of course it's because like we're this elite little subgroup, right? So sad, so sad. But and then you meet people who are transitioning, and there's just something safe about a man who's transitioning to a female to be able to talk to another woman, you know, and again, to be able to hold that space. And so I think I'm blessed with the fact that I've done a full circle in one lifetime, right? Like I've seen the end and I will see the end or the beginning and the end of this, right? A lot of people don't get that. They'll get one portion of the life and then they'll have to do the other portion later. But I've had this full circle, but also because of my openness and maybe desperation of just survival, I had to chameleonize into other people's lives. And that meant in order for me to have a roof over my head, food in my mouth, that I needed to accept her exactly how she was. So it wasn't a have to, but it was like, this is part of the package. And so really what it did is everything that used to be seen as negatives have now become my gems. I wrote a blog about that. It's on my website about, you know, like used to call me, you know, a slut, promiscuous. Well, it's like, I'm sexually liberated and super open-minded. These are now my pluses, right? And I started to look, because again, I look at this whole journey as everything had to happen exactly the way it did in order for me to have the wisdom I have today, right? So there's no good, there's no bad, it just is. And so now it's like, I have the words. I know what it's like, my time with my angel. I know what it's like to live in secrecy amongst, you know, that outside world. Yeah. And I think I'm just a soul lover because so many times when I would look at people, it's not who they really were. And so I would look at their soul. What were their actions? What kind of vibes did I get from them? So I think that also helped a little bit too with some diversity within my journey.
Absolutely. And I do think, like, for me personally, I love that terminology soul lover because for me personally, I feel like, you know, when you meet someone and you go, you know, I don't know about this person. Then you get to meet them and that person becomes so extraordinarily beautiful. That person becomes like a magnet, and it's because you get to know their soul, right? It has nothing to do with how they look or what they do for a living or
their Gucci shoes.
Who cares? Right. And so, I love that terminology, soul lover. I feel like, wouldn't the world be a beautiful place if we were all soul lovers?
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
Oh my God, how beautiful is that? There are small circles. There are small circles. I did some energy healing and then became a practitioner. And within that circle, they're soul lovers. They're all about like moving out old and bringing in new, and it's so loving and warm and accepting, and you can wear whatever you want. And, and in fact, if you wear brand names, they're like, "What's wrong with you?"
But it's like it's liberating, right? It's liberating.
That's the perfect word. Absolutely. It's just the big exhale. You know, so much of it is like, I mean, I get it still today where I just get uptight about stuff. It's like, all right, girl, can we just breathe here for a second? Because, yeah, there's a lot out there. And then there's a lot going on inside me. And then there's a lot going on outside. No wonder why I was reacting to everything.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't have ground to stand on. So I think that's why, clearing up some of the past, the trauma, and then now like the maintenance of like doing that journaling and talking soul to soul, heart to heart with other people. So then when I do go out into the world, I don't feel alone. I don't feel misunderstood. I don't feel like I have to be better than, you know what I mean? It's like I'm already accepted here. I don't have to fight that fight. And that's amazing. That's an amazing
incredible. Feeling. Yeah, wow. Wow. So what has the reaction to the book been? I mean, obviously it's winning awards and it's doing great things, but what has the reaction from its readers been? Because that's the most exciting part, right?
Well, you know how we're talking about like, oh, we get to connect with these amazing women. Okay, so that in itself has been mind-blowing. And so I do all the social media, so the messaging and stuff. So I get to have these, quick little conversations with some. And then I have one lady who's actually coming up to do a show. I mean, so these relationships are in all different forms. And then surprisingly, during the book launch, I had a time where gentlemen were coming up to me and saying, this is why my wife does what she does, isn't it? Like looking at me like as if I, like being the adult woman who had this past, this is the way I'm going to project. He's like, this is why my wife doesn't feel comfortable or sexy, or it's like, yeah, baby. Because she's been told all her life that she wasn't. And it might not even been out of anybody's mouth, right? Another one that was super cool is I had moms coming up and saying, okay, my daughter's doing this on this chapter. She's doing that right now. She's doing it. I'm like, just love her through it, baby. Don't push her away. Just love her through it. Because,
love that.
Yeah. So it's been amazing. And more times than not, people are like, well, why does this just have to be a woman? Why are you just talking to the girl in the back of the room? And I was like, because that's the only one I could relate to at the time. But some men were kind of like, well, we need this stuff too.
Sure. Sure.
Like, wow.
Sure. Yeah. But, they can take that as if you are talking to that young person at the back of the room, if that's what they need, right? Yeah. And look, it is a powerful book. I 100% recommend everybody read this. You unpack so much stuff. Your life, there are so many colors to your life and through this journey. This is not on an even path here, but that's what makes it extraordinary and what makes you so extraordinary. We will put all of the links to where everyone can buy the book, how they can follow you, all of your website, all of it, because I know that there will be people listening today where this resonates so much, that there's so many pieces of your story that it no doubt impacts so many different kinds of people, right?
Yes. I definitely had many different lives that I lived, right? So it's like I can relate to so many scenarios. And I think as you were saying, that people would reach out or whatnot, the first thing that comes to mind is like, don't think that it's too small. Like, oh, that's too small. She's really busy. I'm not gonna send her a text about that. Like, that's the problem right there. Like, do not push that to the side. That guy wants to come up and be talked about, right? So if it just comes to mind and you're like, no, back up, get on the keyboard and shoot me a message and let's talk about that, right? And again, I might not have the solution, but I got the questions that can help you find that answer. So yeah, the website's the place to go.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll put up that link because there's so many resources, and I think, you're just an amazing person, but through your pain and your suffering, you've turned this into an extraordinary life, and you have done so by helping other people as well, and I applaud you for that.
And those people definitely held me up times too. Yeah, a totally different way of doing it. Yeah, I'm
absolutely
so grateful for them.
Well, I am so grateful to meet you. I am so grateful that you've shared your hard-won wisdom and your incredible journey here with us today in the Confessional. Your book is sublime, as I said. I really sincerely hope everybody rushes out and reads it. And thank you for everything that you do and the joy you bring to the world. Jules, you're incredible.
I am so grateful to be on this side. Absolutely. I made it. You made it. Thank God.
Right?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for this time and just to come back in and relive this and the love and the support, because that's an ongoing journey too. So thank you for giving that.
It's been an absolute honor. It's my joy and delight. Thanks so much, Jules.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.